Thank you, Simon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start this. I'm Konstantin. I'm strategy director at AIM Group, and like Simon said, I'm going to look at a difficult journey into transaction that real estate industry has to go through, and we're going to look at seller leads specifically as the first part of this journey in a lot more detail today. So, today's agenda. We're going to look at commission pool, and there's been a lot of talk about it already, but it's going to be our take in group on how much of it portals get right now, digitizing transactions and how other similar verticals are approaching this, and strategies for portals that want to target seller side. We're going to look at business models with which they target that, and we're going to look at effective processes and tools for lead qualification, because this is the key competence that is important to play well on the seller side. And we'll wrap it up with sizing revenue opportunities from the seller leads business. Again, very rough estimate. We don't have time for a lot of detailed calculations, but nonetheless, interesting numbers there. So, agent commission pool, a dream that everyone wants to share in from the digital disruptors. And just like the previous speaker said, agents are not really keen to share, right? So, how big is it? And what's in it for portals in the future? Transaction commission pools, here we have numbers for the five, I would say, most interesting developed markets. These are not emerging property markets. And they're all pretty sizable. They're all, several billions each, with the exception of the US, which is a clear outlier because of the number of transactions and the size of the commission. Now, this is only transactions from residential, right? And only those going through agents. And leading portal in each market, if you just map revenues from agents, from residential agents, then we can calculate what percentage of commission pool their revenues represent, not necessarily taking it from their commission pool, because, for example, Australia is a vendor-based market. And on the other extreme, Zillow operates in an MLS-dominated market, so the number is quite low. But for European players, that seems to be between 2.5% and 5%, and interestingly, in other verticals that at AIM Group we analyze, this seems to be a common topic for portals, a common range of sort of 3 to 3.5 to 5% of leading portals taken from the net revenues of the agents or dealers that they monetize. Commission revenue obviously has been, commission revenue pool has been approached by digital disruptors in different ways over time. And marketplaces obviously were the first ones to address the buyer side, buy leads, I don't have to tell you that, with listing fees model. And then the next big wave was, of course, tech-enabled brokers, which were addressing with digital solutions the operating cost side of it for all agents. And some of them succeeded in that, some not so much yet, but still it's the area they tackled. The area that's more recently is being innovated in and disrupted digitally is the seller side. And one thing to point out here is actually that tech-enabled brokers, obviously, a significant part of their revenues comes from commission sharing model. And that's very interesting. And for the marketing side of things, where the agent marketing budget that was not available to portals because it was dedicated not to buyer-side marketing, but to seller-side marketing, is being attacked by vendor services players, such as Maiores Lejeune or Imafercao24, that also operate on commission shared model. Now, pay-per-lead model is also there, and the two coexist, and they can coexist, but the commission sharing model has higher potential for growth. Looking at the most similar vertical to real estate, obviously real estate transaction is super complex and super involves a lot of steps and difficulties, but we can look at how most similar vertical and similarly advanced portal like AutoTrade in the UK is approaching transactional journey and transactional transformation for cars. And there are some interesting lessons there. So the framework they use for that is jobs to be done on the consumer journey to transaction. And that's how they currently see the market, right? A lot of, red is offline, blue is online, and a lot of this is happening offline right now. Their vision for the future is that what they call more of a transaction rather than journey to digital transaction, right? So more of each of the step will happen online, but there will always be critical steps in pretty much every part of that journey that will require physical involvement, some kind of real world interaction, and a person to interact with. It doesn't have to be in person, but it can be on the call. And so that is an interesting evolution and approach to this, because it says it does not have to happen all online, and it probably never will. And it's supported by what consumers have to say about it. So a survey that they run in the UK about attitudes, the text is a little small. So dark blue is basically, I've never done this online. Light blue is, I haven't done this, sorry, dark blue is I've done this online. Light blue is I haven't done this online, but I would like to, so it's a desire. And red is I haven't done it online and I don't want to do it online. And there are some interesting things here. So obviously to book a test drive for a car, okay, a lot of people have done it online, even more so want to do it. So dealers actually are not ready yet to enable this, to do online booking, but eventually they will. It's not super difficult. But when it comes to inspecting a car, 1 in 2 want it in person, even in the long run. So it will have to stay a physical process for a material part of the market. And when it comes to valuation, and the parallel here is very interesting for the real estate, valuation of existing car, guide valuation, trade-in, C2B businesses, has been around for a while. 40% already got online valuation, guide valuation. Another 40% want to have it online. So that's the thing that can migrate online. But consumers want guaranteed valuation. And almost the same number, 70% want guaranteed valuation. And that's something that dealers are really not willing to provide. And so that was an unmet customer need that Auto Trader spotted, and they launched the product into this space with guaranteed part exchange, partnering with another player in the UK. And then finance is a surprising one here, because on the earlier slide, Auto Trader believes that almost all of the finance will be digital. But actually, if you look at consumer preferences, almost 40%, even though you can compare all the financial products online, in the UK at least right now, almost 40% still don't want it all online. And then the complete finance agreement, even when you already compare that, you would think, okay, just sign it online and digitally and off you go. They still want physical experience there, or at least phone confirmation with a human. So some interesting findings there, and that just confirms that we're in the market where humans will, and people, employees, reps will stay important part of that transaction at various parts of it. And there's nothing we can do about it. We can only build processes and businesses that's going to enable them to do it faster, better, but they will be critical in certain steps. If we were to build that journey for real estate, we wouldn't have space on this slide. So I'm not going to present that. There's a lot of complexity to it, but we have it so we can distribute it in a printed form. We're going to focus on the part that is at the beginning of it, which is for agents and for a property. There's no sale of a property if there is no owner desiring to sell. There's no business for agents. So it starts with attracting sellers, and it starts with qualifying leads, it continues with qualifying leads, and then conversion to mandate. And this is the part, only after that, agents can start market the listings, and then they can work on the transaction if they have a buyer. But this is the part that we're focusing on today. Acquire sellers is the part where a lot of transactional things are happening. And interestingly, this is information that's been shared by Imopinion, which is a survey of over 1,000 agents in France run annually, about the sources of seller mandates. So, what are the real sources of mandates? And of course, that's their perception. That's not measured scientifically, but nonetheless, vast majority of those sources are offline. right? They're not digital. And if you look closer, the top two, word of mouth and returning customers, are only available to established agents with established customer bases. They're not available to newer agents. You have to build it. So new agents have to deal with other channels, local marketing, door-to-door prospecting. They have to even use, for sale by owner market monitoring tools, as they call them, but they really are scraping tools, to get new leads. And so, of course, there are channels like listings online, which generate seller leads, but you have to get those listings first. So that means for newer agents entering the market, digital channels are often second or third channel that they name. This is why these results look like this. And so from a business side of things, only two of them are really available, and then the listings online portals are already playing. So it's the valuations online that is an interesting one to look into. Of course, portals, the advanced ones, and pretty much all of them, spotted that opportunity, and they looked at it closely and elevated that. For example, for Email Scout, it's one of the 3 pillars of their strategy to go after leads and mandates and really grow their revenue through that. Build or buy is the first question they have to answer, and we've seen in the previous speech as well that it's not something that is unique. Every market is different, but we've seen that in markets where they were interested in businesses and the portals, put it as part of their strategy, they moved quickly with acquisitions, right? Meilleurs Agents acquired in 2019, MFRCAF 2020 by the leading players in their markets, and then REA Group went a different way, even though there are businesses of similar nature in Australia, but they're not big enough, so they relaunched Property.com.au as a seller-focused portal. And it started to say, if it's going to be a huge success or not with the sellers, but there's a strategy behind that, and it's targeted at sellers. So looking more specifically at, what really attracts sellers, what starts that process on the seller side, and what we need to do as a business, doesn't matter portal or independent business, if we want to capture those seller leads. 2 primary starting points. Valuing your property, be it a guide valuation or booking a real valuation with an agent, and or selecting an agent that either is invited to value a property, or when you already know the value, just choosing the right agent for you, comparing their proposals. It's rarely or, it's often and also on the product side, they coexist within portals or within the same business. The key thing here is that valuation request is often by agents regarded as the very high quality lead. Why? There's some research, we'll look at it later, but the other part that is important here is, does it actually have to be standalone, or can it be part of the portal? And the answer is, again, depends on the market. In some markets where seller leads businesses started early, they managed to build very strong brands. So, for example, Meilleurs Agents in France is a very strong brand. The key thing here is, if you're building it on valuations, do owners and agents really trust your estimates, right? And in the case of France, 1 in 2 property transactions it is estimated that start on Meilleurs Agents with a valuation. That is a very strong brand, so it makes sense to keep it standalone. But in Germany, they launched the same technology on the portal, and it's also an option. Doesn't have to be. It depends on individual market situation. And there are 2 business models that seem to work. They both seem to work materially well in seller leads, but with very different unit economics and very different numbers. So this is from Email Scout Capital Markets Day, and from some our own estimates from their financial reporting. But you can see how radically different in terms of value those leads are. Commission sharing model is almost 7,000 euros, more than 7,000 euros, versus what is called basic lead, where it's sold per lead at 200 euros per lead. But the numbers of those transactions, of those leads, are also very different. And revenues from both are material. And what is interesting is they share the same lead pool. So those leads are taken from the same pool of leads now that Immo4Kauf has integrated with ImmoScout. So it's a like-for-like comparison and shows you the difference that you can really achieve with deep qualification process. The difference between the two is the deep qualification process that allows you to separate really high-value leads from the rest. So we're going to look at how it really works. And the research I mentioned earlier, again, from Imopinion, in France, agents, and that I'm sure it's in most markets, agents are actually pretty good at converting proposals into mandates and mandates into sales. So proposal, or a lead that results in a proposal for an agent, is a highly valuable lead that they're ready to pay for because they know they're going to make a sale from it, or at least 1 in 2, they're going to make a sale from it. So, but what is interesting is, are they really that good at getting the proposals, right? So the agents will tell us they want the phone to ring, right? Just send me the calls, and I'll convert them into leads. Well, do they? 87% in mystery shopping study by Rightmove, 87% of agents in the UK missed the instruction opportunity. They actually didn't get it. And that's pretty shocking. So they're not that good at capturing that universally. And that's where a platform that applies repeatable processes, training, and which is bigger than any of individual agents in terms of data that it collects and the training that it provides and and the learning that follows from that, can actually have an advantage. So what we've learned from talking to several players in this market is that the core to their deep qualification process is a human call. It's unavoidable, right? So for good, high-quality seller leads, human call is a must, and it can be as long as 20 minutes because the key focus of that is to learn sell a reason for selling, to understand their situation, and that allows the person, the rep on the other side, to prioritize that lead. Maybe it will take time before the seller is ready to sell, so we need to delay and return the call later. Maybe there's more than one property here, and there's more than one lead, and so on. So it's understanding that sell situation is basically key to ranking the leads within the system. Act as a friendly and valuable advisor is also important because you're not an agent. This service that qualifies leads is actually not an agent, and that allows them to overcome a lot of resistance to agents if they provide necessary training and demonstrate empathy to the person selling. And empathy is more important than real estate experience for the reps. This is what we were told. And it can be easily replicated with training and with updating reps with information about the local area, the trends in there, average commission levels, and time to sell a property in that area that they can share with the customer. That is a valuable information with the customer, and it impacts many other things, including referrals, ultimately. And technology helps, and helps a lot, but it should not be seen as a replacement for people. It is used to score leads, to prioritize which ones to go to humans and which ones not to go to humans, but also to score leads after that call. But actual scoring, again, we were told that expertise is very important. So scoring happens after the call happens by humans a lot, and only then mechanisms kick in to prioritize which lead goes to which agent at what speed and so on. So it's still a very, very people business. And then next step, convert to mandate. That's something that we've seen agents think they're really good at, and they probably are. But there's still things we can do if we play in the commission sharing game. We can do to increase our revenues with these things we need to do to make sure more leads convert to mandates. And again, 1 in 4 in the same mystery shopping study, 1 in 4 agents, and these were Rightmove email seller leads, I got no response at all. 1 in 4. And that's not good. Agents are not good at following up. So the system, the process, the actual competition needs to be designed for agents to have an incentive to follow up. And it's not just email. you actually need to call the agent and brief them about the specific customer. It's almost handing over, personally, that lead. You need to make agents compete, and that means limited number of agents that lead goes to, but it should be at least 2. We've seen 3, many players do 3. Limit the time for the agent to call, maximum 2 business days, and set that expectation with the customer and the agent. And sometimes even charge subscriptions, so the agents actually feel that if they don't follow up, they're losing some money. It can be modest. The logic here is more psychological than revenue. And always be scoring. Always score agents on performance metrics, even metrics like track the first call, how quickly they actually called the customer, how long they spoke with him, and that can be done through call tracking, and that can be recorded and scored against, and follow up with your own call to the customer after some time. Have you chosen the agent? Which agent have you chosen? How is the transaction going? Continue that conversation with the customer as a valuable advisor and build that relationship. And next part is tools that really allow agents to save time and convert into mandate and do less of a legwork. And this is where many portals already have strong offering. So these are tools for professional proposals, these evaluation tools that they can prepare for the customers. Digital contracts for mandates, that saves the trip to the office and allows to sign things electronically and appoint an agent. Depends on the country a lot, if the legal framework is there for that to happen. But legal contracts can be signed digitally in most markets now. And payment solutions for vendor-pays markets where the customer can already pay for marketing online. That applies to Australia, Scandinavia, and some other markets. And so REA Group already has a pretty strong suite of products in that space, but many portals have some combination of products that actually, the interesting part here is when you combine that with commission sharing model, an interesting thought is that agents should actually get that for free as part of their commission participation in commission sharing, because as a portal or as a business, you can then see the whole funnel, what they're doing, how they're controlling, how they executing on the transaction, and that allows you to get better at qualifying leads and learn and always stay ahead of the agents themselves in terms of which leads convert better. So, revenue potential to wrap up, let's look at revenue potential for commission sharing models in seller leads in the same 5 markets. And very quick back-envelope calculation that can fit on the screen is we'll look at transactions that happen through agents in those markets. We'll look at average agent commission, which of course is a calculation of percentage agent commission and property value in those markets. And UK has the lowest, not surprisingly, because it's 1.4 average agent commission, 1.4%. And assuming, and this is common for existing commission sharing models, assuming 20% of agent commission is what the platform takes, that gives us lead value. And then, looking long term, we can imagine, okay, at 10%, if we control 10% of transactions in the market through seller leads business, how much revenue upside is in that, right? And in most markets, it's over 100 million. And US, again, is a massive outlier. But comparing that to existing revenues of portals from agents, we can see massive upside, right? It's very meaningful upside, 40% to 80% for most. Again, there are outliers like REA Group and Zillow. But this is the upside that is probably worth looking at from a business perspective. Conclusions. So, seller leads are a critical step to transaction transformation. You've seen that. And the processes that these businesses run are very different to processes that portals used to run. And as a model, commission sharing on quality leads has the highest revenue potential for best quality leads. But we think, and we're pretty certain, talking to players, that cost per lead will also stay, and the 2 models can coexist and will coexist. And that's just going to be the future of this business. And to conclude, real estate often perceived as very conservative vertical. And both on consumer sides, that they take time to adapt, and agents in most markets are super conservative. So, but it's the smart ones who will own the future. So I came across this agent profile, the best performing agent in Australia, and the name didn't tell me anything. So I had to Google the guy, and that's what he has to say to us. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years, and we underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Konstantin, thank you very much. Stay up here, we've got some questions. Come over here so you can see them.
All right.
They'll pop up here. Okay, let's, if you could bring the questions up, it'd be fantastic. Now, the first one is how critical do you think 3D virtual visits are towards accelerating the lead qualification towards an in-portal transaction?
Is that on the seller side or on the buyer side?
I would think it'd be on the buyer side.
Yeah, because that's the part that, I don't have a research to share right now off the top of my head, so I can't answer this question.
Okay, there you go. Okay, when you refer to mandates, do you mean exclusive seller mandates or non-exclusive?
This is interesting because different markets are different, right? And there are markets that are very heavy on exclusive mandates, and there are markets which are not. If we take example of France, historically it was non-exclusive market, and that was a major frustration for agents as well. And for seller leads, from a seller leads business perspective, that's also a big challenge. But the trend, we've spoken with several players in the market on the agent side as well, the trend is towards more exclusive mandates now. So, and we've seen it in some other markets too. I think the evolution is that in the markets that were non-exclusive predominantly, a higher percentage of transactions are being closed through exclusive mandates now. The ones who are already exclusive, then that's the nature, just consumers have to accept that.
Okay. Why would you sell the leads to get 20% when you can do the whole transaction and get 100%?
It's because of that human involvement. But actually it doesn't stop at that 20%, right? So in eMascout publicly available data, you can see they reported 40% last year is the take of the transaction. So you can push it higher. The more digital processes you do in that overall transaction journey, the more you can push these transactions. There are agents that are happy to pay that higher percentage. There are agents like that, and you don't need to have the whole market for you to grab that percentage. So I think having the whole 100% of the transaction in such a complex transaction journey where you have critical elements where humans are necessary and things can fall apart, especially at the closing level, I think it's a fair game. Just sharing that, 40-60, 30-70, we're just at the start of it.
So there are two sort of issues with that, right? One side of the coin is to say, if I get 100% of the commission, I get 100% of the headaches.
Exactly.
Right, in the process.
Yeah.
But the other way is, if I only take 40% of the commission, but I'm reliant on agents out there to close out, so I get my 40%.
Exactly.
What's the drop-off of those transactions that never close because we saw the stats, right?
Yeah.
The agents don't do the follow-up and so on.
Yes.
That it's not just at the beginning, it must be throughout the complete process as well.
Well,
there is drop-off.
There's two things here, right, with this drop-off. One is transactions that drop off just because of seller can change their mind or whatever, right? So that's the thing you cannot control, either as an agent or as a portal. You cannot control this. So that drop-off is off the game, is off the chart. But then there's a second drop-off where, okay, this specific agent fucked up, right? Didn't follow up, didn't complete the sale, did something wrong. Well, that's why you should give the lead to 2 agents, to 3 agents, right? And as they win, you score them. And as you keep scoring, you're learning about your agent pool, and only the best ones retain those leads. And only the best ones continue to participate in those leads. It's a self-enhancing system.
Okay, so then there's a sort of a related question, right? Selling lead by lead, is a very operational process with qualification and returns. Okay, how do you find the balance between the amount of money you invest in doing that, in qualifying the leads, versus the quality? As a trade-off, right? You can get high quality leads that you're selling that close very well, but you have to spend a lot of money, so...
Yes, and I think this is very interesting what ImmoScout is doing, because they're running two models in parallel, right? And that's where you learn the answers, right? It's under the bonnet, but if you have both models within the same business group, and you're sharing the knowledge, then you know where this balance is, how much, like, where's your return on investment in terms of, okay, really deeply qualifying that lead and how much it's worth, or not. Like, where do we stop, right? Do we actually have to send the physical person to the house to talk to the, to the seller? Is it worth it? Because that's what agents used to do in the past, right? But that's expensive. So finding that balance, I think running two models in parallel is great advantage about learning this balance.
Okay, so a follow-on from that, which is this next question, is what do you think is the future? Offering these better tools and doing the commission sharing, or starting the TEB business with agents and talking to the sellers? You know, where do we end up? You talk about doing both models and running them in parallel and sort of working it out, but where do you end up?
Well, TEB, so tech-enabled brokers are different businesses. And it's interesting that if you look at what they do now, very few of them offer material, at least when you talk to the agents that participate in them, very few of them offer material lead generation, seller lead generation to their agents. So the agents still have to go and figure it out themselves somehow. So I think a more interesting angle on this is, can tech-enabled brokers merge or buy the seller leads businesses and therefore strengthen them, both of them? Is there a synergy between those two players rather than portals and seller leads businesses? So that is a question I don't have a right immediate answer to, because we haven't seen tech-enabled brokers buying that. We've seen portals buying this. But instinctively, it feels like synergies with portals are bigger because of access to, it wasn't in here, but there's research that says that between 50 and 70% of buyers also have a property to sell. Depends on the market. And so there are synergies there.
Okay, one last question.
Sure.
Do you feel that offline interactions are higher due to younger generation not being able to afford homes and cars? Because you talked looking at that. Is it a generational issue and we're just waiting for that generation to actually have any money?
It could be partially generational. Like if you look at, for example, Australian property ownership breakdown and by age and generation, it could be that, you know, in real estate, higher percentage of people willing to transact offline is because of that age gap. In Spain, you can see the same, right, in statistics. But that's specific to real estate, I think, less so to cars and other verticals. So yes, it will take longer because of that. But the rental transformation will happen with the younger generation much sooner.
Much faster. In fact, we see it today. Most rental transactions are happening online, sight unseen, renting properties, and just turning up with your...
I think if you talk about transactional transformation in real estate, my bet, like where it will happen faster, as a whole process end to end, my bet is in rentals, not sales.
Yeah. And we will see later on in the conference a lot of interesting businesses who are attacking these segments of the market.
Thank you.
So, Konstantin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Great.